All right, everybody, welcome back to Little Brain Campaign. I am your host, Dr. Lauren LaRose. I am a board certified child and adolescent psychiatrist and adult psychiatrist. And in this podcast, I like to talk to experts and different individuals who are involved in any way, shape, or form in mental health and physical health of kids and their caregivers. And I have the pleasure today of talking to Kirk Martin. If you haven't heard of him before, then you must be living under a rock. He has a podcast.
Because he's annoying.
He has a podcast that you absolutely have to listen to. And we're going to talk all about that and all about his journey throughout parenthood. So thank you for being here, Kirk.
No, I'm super psyched. I do have to say, your voice is very, very calming.
Thank
Like,
you.
I can see why you would do like just sitting here, because I thought you were going to grill me. And it's going to be like an hour of nonstop hard questions, but I feel relaxed already. So thank you for
I'm
that.
so glad I could provide that. Hopefully my kids feel that way, that my voice is soothing, you know? They
Do
probably
they?
don't. They probably don't.
Hopefully not.
Okay, so Kirk, tell us about the podcast first, and then I want to talk about like how did you get to this point of having this podcast?
So it's very much focused for parents of really strong-willed kids.
Yep.
Kids who wake up in the morning with an agenda, which is not your agenda, who pretty much are really good at pushing your buttons, which is your issue because you have too many buttons to push. They're like built-in therapists because you're like, I didn't know I had that issue, but they keep pushing that one. They're kids who don't respond to consequences well because they don't really care about losing stuff. They just don't want to lose their autonomy.
Yep.
So we do a lot with that. We're getting into the PDA area and we love it. I try to make it really practical and take the guilt and shame away from parents.
Yes.
Because it's really, really hard.
Yep. And that is, so a friend of mine directed me to your podcast because as most people who have listened to my podcast know, I have one of my kids has a lot of challenges. At baseline, he's a strong-willed kid, but he also has some challenges on top of that. And what I love about your podcast is exactly what you just said, that it's so validating because I think when you have a strong-willed child, the world ends up blaming you as a parent, right? That like you produced this kid, you made them this way, right? You chose for your kid to be like this. And I think anyone who is in that position as a parent knows, like, of course, if I chose, I would choose the easier kid, you know?
No,
but no, you're right.
Then you would be immature the rest of your life.
You're right. No, you are right. You're right. It forces you to be a better parent, but it's like, there is so much shame and blame. And I love that your podcast validates and you come from a place of understanding from personal experience, which makes a big difference.
Yeah. It was our son. Like I grew up son of a career military father. So that was a ton of fun growing up. And that was just like fear and intimidation, yell and scream, my way or the highway. So Casey comes along and I was like, well, I'll just do that to him. Like, you don't know any different.
Right.
And then he's very strong-willed. We always say he came out of the womb with boxing gloves on, just like love to argue. And like with these kids, you can be like, I'm going to put him in his place. And they come back like 5 times harder.
Yep.
And they're so good at it. Like it really is. And I'm not being funny or gratuitous. It is a skill, which I finally realized like when he was a little bit older. And I was like, you know, this thing that you're really good at arguing, it's why you're good at chess, checkers, pushing my buttons, tinkering with things. It's because you see patterns, you listen, then you have really good critical thinking skills. You call me on my BS, you're persuasive, and then you're persistent. Like, it's not gonna help you a lot as a child because you're gonna be in trouble a lot. But I'm just kidding, but like when you're an adult, like all of those skills are fantastic. The real problem is you're just pushing my buttons and I need to grow up so that I don't take it personally all the time. So, so that was that was kind of realizing, okay, this isn't going to work, nor should it, trying to change another human being. And there's one person in life that I can control. That's myself. So why don't I start putting my energy into controlling my own emotions, my responses, instead of controlling him?
Yeah.
And then that's ironically when our family changed, when I changed.
So, like, was there a specific turning point for you as a parent?
There are a lot of emotional stories behind that of when I recognized my son just wanted my approval
Yeah.
and my acceptance. And there were multiple times where I just didn't give that to him because I kept blaming him.
Yeah.
And it was almost like I was saying, I need you to behave because if you don't behave and do what I tell you to do, I'm not sure I can behave
Yep.
and you don't want to see me angry. And so it just kind of cumulatively just I loved Casey. I spent a lot of time with him. I was like a good dad, but he was drawing away from me.
Mhm.
And I remember asking my wife, like, why doesn't he want to spend time with me? And she just looked at me and said, would you want to spend time with you? Like you're
Wow.
on him all the time, you're critical, you correct him all the time, you don't seem to enjoy him. Like, why did you have a son?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I thought, because a lot of dads are like, if I'm not correcting my child, I'm not being a dad. And we all fall into that, right, Lauren? Of like, we're correcting, disciplining, motivating, and we forget to enjoy them as they
Yeah.
are.
Yep.
So,
Yep, that is so true. So, like, how did you end up figuring out a different way to parent him? Like, what was that journey like for you?
so it was the realization that I needed to change myself.
Mhm.
Um, I I I'm a guy, so I did like the logical, right,
Mhm.
like thing of like, okay, well, here's a situation. Casey likes to dawdle, right? He moves slowly.
Mhm.
I'm son of career military man. If you're not 5 minutes early, you're 10 minutes late. You've got to be
Right.
lined up by the door saluting the colonel father. So that's a trigger. So what happens normally is he's late, triggers me. I start to rush him. Come on, Case, gotta go, gotta move. He goes more slowly. So
Mhm.
I figured out my anxiety over his behavior was actually causing the exact opposite response that I wanted.
Yeah.
So I remember where I was. I was sitting in this chair. It was in Greensboro, North Carolina when we lived there. And I was like, why don't I do this for the next week? I'll do the opposite of what I'd normally do,
Uh-huh.
because if I get the opposite response, it'll be good. So I started sitting more, I started asking questions more, and I started problem solving. And I was like, oh, that situation changed not because I changed my son, but because I changed my body posture and my tone of voice. Oh, that gives me a lot of power because I can control myself no matter what he's doing.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, that was kind of a cool insight. And so then I just started working on all of my immaturity, which took a little while. And it still continues to this day, right?
So you really figured these things out on your own, just like problem solving in these individual situations. Is that what you're saying?
Can I be honest? I didn't
Yes.
read a lot of books because they didn't speak because I'm oppositional myself.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted to figure it out myself. Why
Yeah.
am I such a jerk? And I think that's part of the strong-willed nature is let me look and let me see, let me be really curious about myself and try to look at this. And then it meant a whole lot more to me
Yeah.
than trying to internalize something from someone else. Doesn't mean I didn't listen to other people and get help, but I really wanted to figure it out on my own.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And I think I'm right that you don't have any mental health training, right? Like you're just do you?
No.
Yeah.
When people email like, "Oh, we wanna hire you to speak. What are your credentials?" I have none. I was a business major in college. I don't have any. I think what we ended up doing is I had this idea, so I'll try to make it short. So I start changing.
Mhm.
Casey had a hard time in school,
Yeah.
and I was working in the corporate world then, so I'd take time off lunch, go visit him in school, and I found I was really good with the neurodivergent kids.
Yeah.
The kids who were bored in class, and I was, like, figuring out stuff, just, like, stuff that would work in the classroom.
Mhm.
And so then I had this idea and I told my wife, "Hey, why don't we bring these kids, these odd little kids?" And I say that affectionately. I don't
Yeah.
like the normal compliant kids are boring to me.
Yeah.
And so they're great. They're easy. They'll work for our kids, the difficult ones.
Yep.
And so I was like, why don't we bring them into our home and we'll just teach them in the moment Well,
Mhm.
how do you deal with frustration and disappointment? Because these are kids who don't deal well with transitions,
Yep.
changes in plans. They want to control things. So, no offense at all, because my wife is a therapist, but we didn't want to put them in a therapist's office,
Uh-huh.
isolated, like, hey, do you want to talk about this? No, not really.
Yeah.
Okay, what else? Like, but so we'd have like 8, 10, 12 kids come into our home
Mhm.
and they were all struggled with anxiety, but they see Legos all over the floor and they were like, boom, I'm
Yeah.
good with this.
Mhm.
And then in just the course of the day, they'd get frustrated. Jimmy took my favorite Legos. Okay, that's called disappointment. I get it. So what are we going to do about it?
Mhm.
Well, I want to hit him. Okay, you could do that, but he's bigger and he'll probably pound you. So what are some other things we could? So we were teaching kids kind of in real life situations
Yep.
in the moment.
Mhm.
And we did that for about a decade, had about 1,500 kids in our home.
Wow.
And, yeah, it was I could people are always like, "Are you doing camps?" I'm like, "I'm way too old for that." It was exhausting. But you know what? It was kind of on the job training
Yep.
of so you and I talked a little bit before this about like our, well, we didn't really talk about childhood trauma, but
Mhm.
like my childhood trauma was my dad was abusive.
Right.
So I got really lucky and was a third born. So my two older brothers took the brunt of it.
Yeah.
I got really, really good at observing patterns
Mhm.
because I knew when my dad got home how he closed or slammed the door of his Chevy Impala, 'cause that's what he drove back then
Mhm.
for a work car, would determine if there was going to be yelling at our home at night.
Wow.
So I got really good at that. So with kids, I can look and see, okay, here's what they're really looking for beneath the surface.
Yeah.
And so I like that a lot. And so I did choose not to go back to school because I thought it would mess up my instincts.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I love about that is that you don't need all of this like training and education to figure out, you know, just use your critical thinking and figure out how to problem solve with a kid in the moment.
Yeah.
Like that's what I love about it. And I think it can almost be overwhelming and confusing sometimes because there's so much advice out there and there's so much information and parents can get really lost in that that it's too many opinions on like what to do with their kid, instead of just
Or
like
I get
sitting and
lost in
thinking.
technical. Yeah, I get
Mhm.
lost in technical because I'm not that bright in that way. But so here's an example. We've noticed kids, here's a pattern. Kids come into our home, they get upset or whatever. They take the cushions off our sofa and
Mhm.
lie down on the hard shell of the sofa.
Mhm.
And at first you're like, that's weird. Why are you so weird? But then you think, okay, what needs are being met? Oh, sensory needs.
Yeah.
That feels very comforting for them. So then immediately 3 ideas. Okay, sleep issues. This doesn't work all the time. Throw them in a sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Put them on the floor or in the closet because they like confined spaces. Helps. Do homework instead of sitting at a kitchen table. Hey, you like to be under things, confined spaces. Why don't we put a blanket over the kitchen table? It's not a fort. And you can do your homework underneath the kitchen table
Yep.
and you can clean up the mac and cheese and chicken nuggets that fell off your plate from the night before because that's all they eat anyway. And then we came up with a calming tool, which when the kids were really upset, we had a code word because
Mhm.
when kids are upset, they can't process language. So I personally don't like a lot of like, hey, let's identify your emotions. Do you want to talk about it? And the stronger kids like, no, I really effing don't.
Yeah.
Right? Just tell me what to do with them.
Yeah.
So they would get upset and I would say, sofa. And they had a job, a mission. So the initial mission wasn't, hey, you need to calm down.
Mhm.
No, your mission is go in my living room, throw all those cushions on the floor, and then you lay down.
Mhm.
I would go in, I'd lay the cushions on top of them, and then I would sit on top of the cushions with appropriate weight stuff so
Mhm.
I didn't hurt anybody. And they immediately calmed down.
Mhm.
Sensory pressure, it was weird.
Mhm.
Weird stuff works.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because 'cause they're like, "Why are you sitting up there?" And now there's no eye contact either.
Yep.
I don't do a lot of eye contact when kids are really upset
Mhm.
because it can feel threatening,
Yep.
they're embarrassed, they're ashamed, and then we would have these amazing conversations. I was like, "Okay, so tell me, I'm curious, what happened 3 minutes ago that caused you to be really upset?
Mm-hmm.
And then we would talk about it. And I'd be like, okay, that makes sense to me. Joey's a little bit irritating. I get that. So what are we going to do next time?
Yep.
So, and that was just from observe your kids, because I think they tell you everything they need
Mm-hmm.
just by what they do.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So it's basically trying to figure out, sometimes I don't like the word accommodate, but how to like accommodate a kid, right?
Mhm.
So that they're having their needs met. They are learning to cope. They're learning how to regulate. Instead of trying to shove that square peg into that round hole and force them to
Mhm.
be the way that you quote unquote want them to be. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, you know what? I'm growing where I don't like the word accommodate either,
Yeah.
because it sounds a little bit condescending, like, oh, you can't handle this unless I accommodate you. And I see that a little bit like in the PDA world now, where it's
Mm-hmm.
all accommodations. And from my point of view, it's like, no, I'm going to give you tools. So
Yeah.
I'm going to normalize it. Yeah, of course you don't want to go. Look, of course you don't want to go to that new Taekwondo class. There's all these new people, kids you don't know. The kids we work with struggle. They have the asynchronous development, don't get along well with kids their own age.
Yep.
But they're really good with little kids, animals, and older people. So makes sense to me. You wouldn't want to go to a new place
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many unknowns. What if the instructor's not nice? Like, of course, is your stomach a little bit upset? And usually they'd be like, yeah, that's normal. Because when you're nervous about something, your stomach gets upset.
Yeah.
That alone is like, okay, so there's nothing wrong with me
Yep.
that I don't want to go. No. In fact, it's kind of weird that people want to do new things because
Mm-hmm.
that's supposed to be scary. But then the tool, instead of, I don't know if this will come across the right way, but sometimes the accommodations sound like, well, honey, I know you can't handle this, so here's what we're going to do. And the strong-willed kids are like, why are you talking to me like I'm 3?
Yeah. Yep.
Like, give me some tools. So the tool is, like for me, for anxiety is, if you can take them a few days ahead of time to that new place, the Taekwondo place, let them observe it, see what it smells what it looks like. And then if you can introduce them to an adult, if you can get another adult to give them a job to do, oh man, I'm so glad you're in my class Thursday night. Man, could you get here 5 minutes early? Because I could really use your help.
Mm-hmm.
These kids will do anything for someone else. They just won't do anything for you, moms and dads.
Yeah.
They just won't.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because you're raising them to do well in life with other adults. That's their whole
Correct.
life,
Yes.
not to
Yes.
be, and so that's a tool. I didn't accommodate my son with that. I gave him a tool, so now our son's grown,
Yeah.
and he knows if he's anxious, it's like, okay, find someone at that party that has a common interest with me, and then we'll connect and talk about skiing.
Right.
And now he's like, "Oh, I just handled my anxiety." It would just give you a tool to do that.
Right. Right. So tell us, because I think you're kind of alluding to this, right? That there's a big difference between gentle parenting, over accommodating, and the type of parenting that you're talking about, right? And I think sometimes people confuse and think that they're the same, and they are definitely not.
So I don't wanna do the whole I don't wanna do the pile on. I get kinda tired of, like, everybody piles on gentle parenting. So
Yeah.
here's how I
Mhm.
would frame it.
Yeah.
I come from the old school authoritarian parenting.
Yeah.
There weren't really great parts, but our parents did do a good job of, they did a lot of things wrong, but they did do a good job of, having some boundaries and not bending over backwards to do everything with us. And you could get some changed outward behavior, but it was through fear.
Right.
So that wasn't great.
Right.
I think we swung, rightly so, we swung away from that, but we kind of went too far. So now we talk like this with our kids
Mhm.
and we connect with them, which is amazing.
Right.
But sometimes the strong willed child, now look, if you have compliant kids, it doesn't really matter what you do.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just going to do, they just want to please, they'll do. So it doesn't matter.
Right.
But with the strong willed kids, I think that sweet tone sounds condescending to
Mhm.
them. And so we don't always get the behavior change, but we got the connection.
Right.
So I think where we come in is I'm a calm, authoritative leader. So I don't take things personally. And I like an even matter of fact tone, right? I've kind of modeled that. Hey, of course you're struggling. Of course you don't want to do that. Of course you don't. but I don't go with that super sweet tone, but
Mhm.
I also don't say, "You know what? You better get your butt in bed right now."
Right.
It's a leadership tone.
Right.
And so I don't know if that makes sense. So and it's not so much accommodating as it is saying, "Okay, this is normal. You have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. So for your weaknesses, I'm going to give you tools
Right.
so that you can be successful."
Right.
And that tone to me, because I don't want people talking to me like, "Kirk, we know that you have anger issues." And I'd be like, "You know why I have anger issues? Because you're talking to me like that." Right? Like I want someone to say, like, "Hey, you know what? Sometimes I've noticed you use humor as deflection because you like creating distance with people because if you let them in too much." And I'd be like, "Absolutely, I do that. So could you give me a couple things to work on so that I could get some help in that area?"
Mhm.
And then it takes all the kind of shame, embarrassment, and all of that out of the situation to say, of course, teenager, of course you just had attitude. It would be weird if I walked in a room and you said, "Father, what wisdom would you like to share with me today?" Like, like
Yep.
the older I get, Lauren, the more I realize like we're all flawed. We
Yeah.
all have our issues. And so you normalize it and then you can get to the root of it a little bit quicker. So I don't know if I answered your question, but did
I
I
think you
answer your
did. Yes.
Yeah.
And then jumping back to when you said, like, you don't take things personally. Is that how you
Mhm.
always were, or is that a skill that you
No, of
developed?
course I was a
Okay.
reactive jerk. I was the authority figure. You don't talk to your father li Did
Mhm.
I don't know if you've ever heard, like, I told the story where once I told Casey, "You can't talk to your father like that." He said, "Just did." Right? And he was, like, really in your and I was like, "I wanna murder you, but I
Yeah.
can't." So, no, I had to develop that,
Yeah.
but I think that's where the normalizing it's like, yeah, your toddler's job is to wake up every day. Their day is new. Their world is new every day. Their
Mhm.
job is to explore and make messes and ruin your agenda,
Yep.
right? It's not to say, "Yes, mommy, I'll put on my shoes right away and run to the door." Does that mean I just let them do whatever and run the show? No, but I expect that. I expect a tween. I expect an eighth grade boy to
Mhm.
sit in a hoodie sweatshirt for 12 straight days and play video games. Do I like it? No. Does that mean I let them play till 2 a.m.? No. I expect the teenager to have a little bit of mouth on them.
Yeah.
I just don't take it personally because then it becomes, "You know what? I can't believe that you would talk to me like that." Like, where's that supposed to go?
Right.
Talk
Right.
like what? That tone. Well, now, Dad, you have tone. Okay, we all have tone, right?
Yeah.
And so when I don't take it personally, I can say, I remember I do remember that moment because I had taken it personally for so long. And Casey would just come at me with this intensity. And I remember one day thinking, "You know what? I need to apologize to you because like the last 183 times you talked to me like that, I reacted, ramped it up. And what I realize is you just want my emotional intensity. You want my
Mhm.
engagement. And I've been giving to you in a negative way. And that trains your brain to seek it that way.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to do that right now. But look, if you want to grab some salsa, I'll grab some chips. I'll meet you out on the deck. I'll help you with whatever you're struggling with." And there was an invitation. And then he learned, okay, I can't push my dad's buttons anymore. But I started proactively giving him intense engagement
Yeah.
so that he didn't need that from me because I was
Mhm.
giving it, if that makes sense. But
Yep.
yeah, don't take things personally. You have to grow up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being
Um
immature, right?
So it's just like knowing that these things are part of development and it's not an assault on you as a parent, right? It's
Right.
just like this is just part of development. I mean, it's kind of like I think it's similar to when I have parents who complain about siblings fighting. And I'm like, this is part of having a sibling. It's like the person that you can hash it out with, and then y'all are fine 5 minutes later and you can, play together. Like that's
It
part
would
of
be
having a
weird if
sibling.
Yes, it
Yes.
would be weird. Like, I like this formulation, I use this a lot. It would be weird if your teenager wanted to spend all their free time with you,
Yep.
right? It would be weird if two siblings stuck together under the same roof, competing for the same parents' attention and things and food, got along perfectly.
Yep.
That would be weird to me.
Yeah.
So then it allows you to exhale, to
Mhm.
know that it's not that you're doing something wrong, and you don't always have to fix it either,
Yep.
right? Like, so my one of my favorite sibling things is, so you've got the two siblings fighting with each other, squabbling. What do? We walk in and create more drama.
Mhm.
I buy you guys all these toys and video games, and you can't even play well together for 20 minutes. Go to your room. And then we just separate them. And that has nothing to do with discipline. We just want them to shut up,
Yep.
please.
Yep.
So instead, I walk in the room and I lie down or sit, but lying down on the floor, as long as you're not going to get hurt doing that. But I lie down on the floor and start reading a book. Your two kids are going to look at you like, what are you doing?
Mhm.
I was just observing because I noticed you, strong willed child, you have this awesome brain that has all these ideas and you love brain stimulation. So you were probably bored and picked on your brother because he always reacts to you. So that's probably not going to work well for you in life. But I also know you've got a big heart and you love money. So if you want to help me cook dinner, I bet we could brainstorm a few ways to earn some money in the neighborhood. You've got a big heart, never toward us, but toward other people. You do. Leave out the sarcasm. But like, and if you want to earn some money and give it to charity, I'll match whatever you give. Well, now what I've done is say, I know what you're doing. You're not just being a jerk. You're bored. So you do what every brother has done since the beginning of time,
Yep.
which is to poke your sibling.
Yep.
So here's a different way to handle it that doesn't cause you to lose your screens.
Right.
And then the other child, I can say, you're like your brother's puppet. All he has to do is look at you and you react. You're giving him all this power over you. Why would you do that? And then I've got to teach that child how to stop reacting and to be assertive and say, hey, I'll play this game with you, but if you're going to taunt me or cheat or quit, I'm not playing with you anymore.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now you're teaching them life skills
Yep.
instead of just reacting and being frustrated all the time,
Yep. Yep.
which you should be frustrated all the time because it's hard.
And I know something I don't have to do it as much anymore, but when my kids were younger, I would if they were getting into it and like I couldn't figure out a way to correct the situation myself, I would have them sit down and do a meeting. I was like, y'all need to have a meeting. And so then one would sit in this chair and one would sit in this chair. And it was like far enough apart so that they couldn't actually touch each other.
Uh-huh.
and they would talk it out themselves. And like sometimes the solution I was like, that's not a great solution, but it's the solution they came up with, you know? And I was like, this
Give
is
them
how
some
they
ownership.
figure out conflict, you know, conflict resolution between themselves. And I'm like, y'all, they're gonna have to figure it
Let's
out
go
at some
let's
point.
go do 3 rounds of wrestling in the backyard and be like, "Good. One of you is gonna get hurt." Right? You
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
One's going to get hurt and come
Mhm.
in and say that it was unfair and he was being mean, and it's like, my you know what I started saying now is, when you wake up in the morning, expect chaos.
Yeah.
Just expect it. One of your
Yep.
kids isn't going to want to come to school. One's going to be picky. For those of us who are lucky, it's the same child, right?
Mhm.
They dominate like 85% of the issues in the home. And they're going to complain about, like, it's going to happen. When they
Yeah.
come home from school, they had a bad day. So don't ask them how their day was at school. Like, you're not a bad mom. Moms always are like, but I was like, they don't like school.
Yeah.
Like, you're asking them, hey, how was your day at that place where you're on red on the behavior chart, don't have any friends and are bored all day? Was it better today? It's like, no, mom, pretty much hate it every day. So instead, I give them, like little kids, a treasure hunt.
Mhm.
And I'm like, hey, I hid something in the backyard. Bet you can't find it. Something they're in control of. They're outside. Older kids after school. One, I just don't talk because they're probably tapped out.
Yeah.
Or I just say, hey, something happened to me today at the office, at the grocery store. I'm curious, what would you do if you were in my situation? Because
Mhm.
nobody asks kids all day at school. They don't really ask their opinion.
Yep.
So now it's all of a sudden, well, mom, dad, I would do this. Now they're opening up, but it's because you're not interrogating them.
Yeah.
Like, did you do well on in your school? Because I want you to graduate so you can go to college, so you can get a job, so someone marries you, so you leave our house. Like they hear all of that in that one question, like, how did you do on your test today?
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up shutting down.
Yep. Yep. That is 100% true. So your son, who you talk about, works with you on this
Yeah.
podcast now, right?
He
He's
works with
behind
me.
the scenes.
He's got another job too. So yeah, we
What
can't work
is
together all the time.
what has that experience been like though, now that he's an adult and you're talking about like your journey as a parent parenting him?
It's awesome. I mean, we traveled together for a long time. Like we
Mhm.
used to do live events and then he would speak about like his experience
Mhm.
as a kid, watching me change, what that was like. And then he used to do school assemblies for kids. So we've spent a lot of time together. So we are experts at pushing each other's buttons because we're just alike, which is awesome. But you know what is cool, Lauren, is watching it come full circle from like a 4 or 5 year old who couldn't sit still in circle time, who was always getting in trouble in school, who just struggled, resisted, and now to see him as a grown adult married
Yeah.
and all the qualities that irritated us about him when was a kid, it's the qualities we admire most now.
Yeah.
Right? So his other job, he gets promoted precisely because he has a lot of energy, because he takes charge, because he doesn't follow directions well, but they don't ask him. His boss says, here's your mission for this event. Just go do it. And they
Uh-huh.
know Casey will carry it out. He's very good at managing people and leading people because I taught him not to be a jerk
Mhm.
and be bossy because people don't like that. So all these, he's really good critical thinking skills, problem solving like on the run in a fast paced environment. So what I want parents to know is like a lot of the things that your kids get grades for are things that skills they don't need in real life.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so you have to have that long-term vision to know, okay, I'm not raising my child to sit still for 6 or 7 hours a day
Mhm.
and memorize information. And most of the kids we work with don't have good short-term memory,
Yep.
which is really helpful for school, but not great for the corporate world. See, in the
Yep.
corporate world, I want to hire someone who's critical thinking skills, who pushes back. Like one of my favorite things about Casey in our work is I will throw out an idea because I'm the idea guy. Hey, Casey, what do you think? And he'll either text, reply, or call me, and he'll be like, Dad, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Right? And it's like, wait, I'm your boss, I'm your dad. But I love the fact that he's so decisive
Mhm.
and he doesn't say, Dad, I don't want to hurt your feelings with this,
Mhm.
but I really do. No, he's like, Dad, that's stupid. We're not doing that. I'm like, okay, good. Now I can move on to the other
Yeah.
idea. Or I push back and say, hey, have you thought about it? Like he didn't do that well in school. He wasn't
Mhm.
a great student,
Yeah.
but he's such a good thinker.
Yep.
So when I send him an idea, I'm like, okay, well thought out, considered all the different angles, decisive, concise. So moms and dads, I just encourage you, make a list sometime. And it's not a knock against schools at all, but make a list of all the traits that are necessary for success in school.
Yep.
And then in the next column, what are the traits necessary for success in the adult world?
Yep.
Because they don't always match up and you'll
Mm-mm.
be freaked out because your child's not doing well in school, but I'm not raising them to be good as kids. I'm raising them to be really good as adults.
Yep. I think that is so important to remember because when you have one of these kids, you just have to know like the world is going to tell you there's something wrong with your child, right? Like he's going to get bad grade, he or she is going to get bad grades, they're going to have disciplinary issues. Other parents may comment on your kid's behavior, not want to be around you, judge you, family members are going to judge you, all of that, right?
Spouse
And
judges you.
yeah.
You're just
And it's
coddling that child. And you're like, no, I'm coddling you.
yeah.
I'm trying to manage. I'll do this for the moms out there. You're not coddling your kids. What you're
Mhm.
doing often is trying to manage the emotions of the home so that your husband doesn't get upset
Yeah.
when your child doesn't behave within a narrow range. And that's exhausting and that's hard. So I just wanted to validate that because that was our experience. Like my
Yeah.
wife had to walk on eggshells. Casey, be quiet. Dad's coming home from work. He's going to be tired. You know how he is when he's tired and crabby. Well, why should everybody have to walk on eggshells around me as a grown man? Like
Yeah.
my job, anyway, I just wanted to validate that that happens and you're not crazy and it's not your fault because sometimes we as men do that. We turn that around on you. Well, if you weren't so soft on him, he would. No, if you're being too soft and accommodating with your kids because you don't handle conflict well, then you need to work on that as well, right?
Yeah.
And you can tell your husband, like, hey, I am too accommodating sometimes. And so I need some help with that.
Yeah.
But also, you're too authoritarian and rigid, and our child is like going away from you. You've lost that connection. So can we both work on this together and meet in the middle?
Hmm.
Even if the fact is you need to move like 3%, needs to move like 30%. It just doesn't work well with men to say you're the problem.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you know, I don't think it's ever like one parent is the only one that has a problem. Like we're all human. We're all going to
Right.
have problems in the way we parent, and there's always things that we can work on, you know? But I do think it's really important to remember with these kids that there are so many traits that they have that are amazing and that like we value as Americans. Like we want, you know, people to be independent and entrepreneurial and like, you know, autonomous and have good critical thinking skills and be decisive. Like we want all of those things for adults. And so we need to recognize that these kids have those traits. They're there.
Yeah.
They're just not valued in kids.
So that's why I try to put them in situations where they can use those traits. And
Yeah.
usually it's doing something for another adult.
Yep.
So, right, they're helping some guy down the street or something. And then what do like all other adults with your child, the most challenging child, are like, oh, they say we love having Casey at our house. I was like, really? He could stay there a little bit more if you want. Why? Because, and this is interesting because just think, Lauren, like with our own kids, we're always like, hey, did you get your work done? Hey, did you do that? Hey, you know what? If you worked a little bit harder, but when your kids' friends come over, your first thing you say isn't like, oh, hey, Jonathan, hey, did you get your homework done? Did you clean your room? Did you make your bed? You're like, hey, what have you been up to? Well, I'm playing on this team. That's awesome. Right? We're great with other people's
Yeah.
kids. And with our own kids, it's like, well, let me grill you and interrogate you and
Yeah.
tell you that you just keep. And so just balance it, but no, like if you're listening to Lauren's podcast, you're like a good mom or dad, right?
Yeah.
Like you're good.
You're
Kids are going to be
trying.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because I'm curious about this, because I know you're going to kind of down that path of realizing like, hey, part of me being triggered is trauma background
Yep.
and some things that happen.
Mhm.
So two questions,
Yeah.
because I'm going to be the podcast host. So how has that impacted, like when your kids do something, how does that make your response, even stronger? You get triggered more. And then what are you discovering about dealing with that? How are you going about that and how is that helping you? Three
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah. So, my okay, so this is really like pertinent to my child. I have three, but my middle is my strong-willed child, but also has a condition called PANS, which I've talked about on the podcast. And as part of that, he very quickly can become extremely dysregulated. So this is like a Hulk reaction. Like it's like all of a sudden, boom, ripping the shirt off and like total freak
Right.
out. Okay. There's no lead up. Um, and so it's taken me a long time to like really be insightful about myself and notice that like as soon as he becomes dysregulated, I become dysregulated. Like internally, I am just like, I am freaking out inside, and like
Is
it's
it
like
kind
fight
of
or
a
flight.
Is it kind of a thing like for me it would be like, "Uh-oh, this reminds me of like when my dad would start hitting my mom or there was all this chaos and it took me back to that." And so it was kind of like a freeze thing almost. Like what is that like for you? And you don't have to share
Yeah.
the personal details, but
So mine is more it's not freeze. It's literally fight or flight mode where I feel like I'm going to have to go run away from a lion,
yeah.
where it's just like the like super like tense all over like shaking, it's like a panic mode, but I'm not
Right.
anxious. It's more
Okay.
angry. It's more angry. Um, and so I don't know why this took me so long to like put two and two together, but I think it's because you're just like living in the moment every day, And
Right.
so, like, finally, I noticed like I'm having the same reaction he is. It's just that he's a kid, so his looks a little bit different than mine.
Right.
And if I've listened to enough people talk and I have enough education to know that, like, if I'm not regulating myself, he can't regulate, right?
Right.
And so I've tried therapy, different types of therapy, and I never really felt like anything addressed that issue, that like fight or
Mhm.
flight mood dysregulation. And so I finally did some thinking and realized, I'm treating all these patients for trauma and they have fight or flight response in response to trauma. Maybe that's my problem. So I finally decided to go see a trauma therapist and like told my story, and she was like, yeah, I think that's the issue, like that's what we need to be focusing on here. So I haven't really started that therapy yet.
Okay.
I'm just at the beginning phases, but I have gotten I just ordered a vagal nerve stimulator
Yeah.
device, like a wearable,
Mhm.
that I'm gonna try out, and if it helps me, I'm gonna get one for my son to see if that can help him, like, not escalate so far when he's, like, being triggered. Um, I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, I'll try anything. I'll
Right.
try anything.
That's awesome. Well, good for you. I'm proud of you for doing that. That's not easy to do. So I partially brought that up because I know that with us doing this podcast, people on our podcast are going to listen, and
Yeah.
I'd like them to hear from like your point of view because a lot of them are going through the same thing, and I think you'll be
Yes.
a great resource for
Yep.
them. And I assume that as you go through this, you'll share your learnings and
Yeah.
what you're doing differently, and like, oh, that helps. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think, like, I want people to know that, like, I have all the training in the world about child development and, mental health and brain development and all this kind of stuff, okay? And then I have my clinical experience. And parenting is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
It is the hardest thing I have ever done. And I would say, like, people always tell me, well, it must be, you must be great at it. It must be easy for you because you have all this training. I'm like, no way. No
No.
way.
The
No
hardest people I
way.
work with are the therapists I work with. It's so hard because 'cause they're, like, stuck on right? Like, it's hard. But you know what?
Yeah.
That's part of the I think that's normalizing part of the
Yes.
process is
Yes.
that it's like, it's supposed to be hard.
Yes.
The purpose of relationships is not happiness,
Yep.
it's transformation.
Yes.
Like, marriage does that. It's like my wife and I were like perfect trauma match.
Mhm.
Like, I was the one who, my dad would hit my mom and do stuff, and so I learned, well, conflict is bad.
Yeah.
And then my wife had been kind of abandoned by her dad. So she's got these abandonments. So we get married, and so you start having like a discussion, an argument. What do? I run. This
Mhm.
conflict's bad. And then that triggers her
Yep.
abandonment. And then she's like, we need to talk. And I was like, no, we don't. We're out. And so then in the course of that, you can either let that like separate you from your spouse or kids,
Yep.
or you realize, oh, the whole point of this, like, I wish we would tell that to people. Like,
Yes.
when they get married, when they have kids, of like, hey, you're not just really raising kids. Like, this isn't like, I like to put it on, it's an adventure you're on.
Yeah.
You get to become a more mature person. And I
Mhm.
can tell you, because I'm a lot older than you, is it feels so good to know I'm not a freak anymore.
Yeah.
Still have my issues, but it's like life doesn't throw you as much because you're like, no, I'm supposed to be triggered by that a little bit and I can deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I love like the moms and dads in this next generation, I think, like the millennials, my son's generation, and I assume you are because you look like so young. And
I appreciate that.
I do. It's partly I'm getting old, but you look very young. I was like, "Wait, you have 3 kids and you're a psychiatrist?" Like, "No,
Uh-huh.
you're not."
Mhm.
And so but you guys, the millennials and the younger generations are so much more honest with themselves,
Yeah.
and I think it's normalized of like, "Yeah, I need help with that." And
Yep.
so I have so much respect for those generations.
Yeah, and just like knowing it's supposed to be hard, it's supposed to be challenging, it's okay. It just takes work. Like you got to work at it. These things are not going to come to you naturally. There's no blueprint for how to parent these kids. Like this is something you have to work at. And it does force you to look inward and work on yourself. And that's part of parenting. That's just part of it.
That's part of being a human, right?
It's part of being a human.
But I will say, the more you work on yourself, the easier all the other situations get.
Yeah. Yep.
Because then, like, our number one thing, if you work with us, is you're working on your own anxiety first. Because I think that's like the number one killer for parents,
Yeah.
is that causes all the fights because it's constant lecturing, constant reminding, and then our control issues. No, you have to do it my way. And the strong-willed child is like,
No.
I'm not.
Nope.
Nah,
Nope.
I'll what consequence are you gonna give me, mom? And you're like, "I'm gonna take away." He's like, "Okay, here it is." And they just don't care, which is awesome. So I love that you're doing what you're doing, and I'm glad you're bringing up pans. So I'll send some people to you for that as well, because I don't
Great.
deal with that much, but it's a huge issue.
Yes, it is. It
So
is definitely a
so
huge
thank you
issue.
for addressing that.
Well, tell everybody how to find you, how to find your podcast.
Calm Parenting Podcast. Just look that up. CelebrateCalm.com, which is a dumb name, but it's Calm Parenting Podcast. You'll find us.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kirk, for being here.
Thank you. This was awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Little Brain Campaign podcast. If you've been enjoying our show, give us a follow on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you know someone else who would enjoy this conversation, please take a minute to share this episode with them and help grow our audience. See you next time.